Hey guys, welcome back to the One Nation of Gamer Circuit. This is Open number 6. I'm Tannen Grace, and I'm joined by Nosham today. We just had a very quick match. LBYS made it all the way to the top 4, but it just wasn't in the cards for him. Zalay through with a quick 3-0. What stood out to you in that match? Was it just the cool decks?
I was really happy to see that Pirate Warrior, and it crushed, man. Zilli just hit the face, got the series done with in about 10 minutes. It was crazy.
Yeah, he's known for saying face is the place, and you know what? He put his money where his mouth is. But we got a pretty good matchup on the next one. We have DreamHack champion Chakki versus Brian the Rat Cortade. Close personal friend of yours. What can you tell me about these guys?
Yeah, these guys, are definitely close friends. I practiced with both of them for DreamHack, and they're both just really passionate about the game, and they definitely love to butt heads with each other. So a little bit of a grudge match between them. They definitely both want to beat each other.
It's one of those good-spirited grudge matches, though. I want to beat people when I go to tournaments, but I want to beat my friends even more. You have those bragging rights over each other. Chakki could win an event, but Brian would be like, "Yeah, you remember that time I beat you in the ONOG top 4? Yeah," and that would sting to me. Like if I was the other guy, that would just sting me. So definitely some bragging rights on the line for these guys. And they got some interesting classes here. I know you talked about. There's some cute cards and some interesting cards in the deck here, especially on Chakki's side. What were you mentioning to me before the broadcast today?
Chakki's definitely going to have a little bit of strange cards in Druid and Shaman.
Don't spoil the surprise.
Yeah, definitely excited when those are seen.
Surprise, but I know we had some cool ones in the first round for you guys, but we got maybe some even more surprising stuff for you here in the second round. Chakki's definitely got some interesting stuff on his side. Now, Brian the Rat Cortade, not sure exactly which versions of the decks that he has, the classes that he brought. He definitely has Rogue, Warlock, Warrior. Not sure what Warrior deck it is, though. I have seen on Twitter he's really big into the Tempo Warrior deck. I've been seeing it put up some insane results lately. I've been playing it a lot lately. It feels good. I don't know if it's going to be one of the best decks once the dust settles in Standard, but it definitely feels really good right now. But his Warlock deck, I gotta believe it's Zoo. Brian the Rat Cortade, sorry, let me get his name correct. One of the better Zoo players in the entire world. So gotta believe he's gonna be playing one of those decks as well. Do you have any insight into his lineup?
Yeah, I'm curious which Warlock's going to be. I know that talking to him recently, he's been on the Reno Lock train, but as you said, he's been known for Zoo for the longest time. So I wouldn't be that surprised to see either. If I had to take a guess, I would probably say Reno just because he's been talking it up lately. But the Rat's definitely a player who just is all about just bringing what he thinks is the best decks. He's not as likely as other players to experiment. He likes bringing what's been tested and what a lot of people consider to be the best decks.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's pretty interesting that you say that he's thinking about playing Reno Lock as Warlock, because he's got to get a little extra help from that if he is actually the Reno Lock deck with people mulliganing incorrectly against him. I know if I was ever playing Brian the Rat Cortade, I've played against him on ladder a few times. If he's playing Warlock, in my mind, he's 100% Zoo. It's like all I've seen him play for the last few months. He got up to number 1 NA with it. And if I was playing a match against him and he queued up Warlock, I would 100% mulligan versus Zoo. And then when he didn't do anything on 1 and life tapped on 2, I would be feeling kind of bad about it.
That's a serious edge that he might gain here if Chakki does not know what Warlock is playing.
Yeah, I got to believe if anybody's not going to fall for it, it might be Chakki. Like you said, they're friends, so maybe they kind of chatted about their lineups before this tournament. You don't know if they actually know the decks on each other's side. Maybe in the spirit of friendship, they kind of gave each other, what decks they're playing. I know I've done that before matches before. If I had more information than my opponent, let's say I knew his decks, but he didn't know mine. Like if his match got streamed and mine didn't, I would go ahead and just give him the information to make it like a level playing field. So we've got the players. They're getting into deck selection, so we'll have the match for you in just a second, guys. Really excited to see this one, see if Chakki can make it back-to-back on tournament wins, because the first one's always the hardest one, right? You got to get that big tournament win out of the way, get that monkey off his shoulder, and then it just seems a lot easier from there. There's not as much pressure, so maybe see a little bit of a looser Chakki here today.
Yeah, even just him coming here and just playing this and being top 4 just proves that there's a reason he won DreamHack, and it's just because he's just real good at the game. It's not doing it by accident.
I think my favorite tweet about it, I saw, obviously when he won, there's a million tweets, so, congratulating him. The entire community was so happy for him. But I think one of my favorite ones, I forgot exactly what it was, but they're like, Chakki's been playing perfect for over a year and a half now. It's no surprise that he won a tournament. The surprise is how long it took. You know,
Yeah.
that like every time I see him play, he just plays so well. And you know what, the more I think about it, the more I'm surprised he hadn't won anything big before this. So definitely hats off to him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brian the Rat Corte joined him in that winner's circle sometime this year and got a big win as well. He seems like a guy that's really poised to break out.
Ooh, so we see Chakki is in fact playing that Beast Druid deck, and they're at, as he predicted, going to be probably on that Temple Warrior, because I doubt that we're going to see this being Patron.
Well, he is the self-proclaimed best patron player in the world, so it's an interesting deck. It's like Patron, just without Grim Patron in it, right?
Yeah, so they go for more of those threats in the late game that the control decks have a harder time dealing with, because a lot of times the control decks just have one or two board clears that just deal with the patrons, and then you're left with no pressure to actually put on.
Yeah, a lot of Shadow Flames, a lot of Hellfires, stuff like that. You know, Consecration with Equality and stuff. So when you go really wide, they can have a bunch of answers. But this deck can go wide and it can go tall. You know, it's got a bunch of big threats as well. You know, there's Grom in here. There's a couple. I mean, you've seen Varian Wrenn and stuff like that. So there's some big threats in this deck as well. Going to be interesting to see exactly which build he has, because we don't know, you know, the whole lists. And I feel like a few cards come in and out of this, like Arathi Weaponsmith. You know, how many of those are you playing, or are you playing it? So pretty interesting. And Chakki's got one of those hands where this curve might be pretty powerful.
Yeah, Chakki playing in the entire Open yesterday, he said he did not miss Innervate a single game that he played with this deck. So he's just going to continue to do that and Innervate out of probably a big guy this turn.
You know what? If you give me Innervate in my opening hand every time I play Druid, I would bring it to tournaments as well. That seems like a pretty good card to always have in your opening hand. For me, it's the other way around. I seem to always have, like, when I'm playing Freeze Mage, I always have Alexstrasza in my opener in the matchups where I don't want it or something. Or, you know, I always have one, you know, Varian Wrenn in my opening hand of this Warrior deck. So nice to see somebody on the other end of the spectrum for once.
Chakki did say to me that if he loses, it's going to be because of this deck. So hopefully that's not the case. He had about 2 games on the deck before he played in the ONOG. He basically just asked me, what should my third deck be? And I was like, I think Beast Druid's maybe okay. And he's like, all right, Bob, gonna trust you. So he's here.
Yeah, and how do you like this as your first play? Like, how would you have sequenced your opening hand? Would you have done it any differently? Like, Savage Combatant on 1 is pretty good, and if there's no answer by Brian the Rat Corte, then this card could just run away with this game.
Yeah, this is going to start pushing hard. Unfortunately for Chakki, he does have the Execute to clean it up next turn, but if he didn't have that, then it's pretty hard for Warrior to deal with this, because none of the weapons really clean it up well. Fire to it twice, and then you know, damage. I'm curious if Chakki is going to go for that hero power. He does.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting to see, do you hero power here because it gets in a ton of extra damage, or do you go with Raven Isle to maybe, you know, pick up some more options that are going forward? But he's already got turn 3 and turn 4 wrapped up, and ooh, this is like kind of creative here. This makes it to where he doesn't have to use the Execute. Blood to Ichor plus Cruel Taskmaster taking down the Savage Combatant.
Druid of the Flame is going to line up pretty good against these 2/2s. I'm curious if he's going to have to, you know, use that Execute on that creature. But if he goes with the Ghoul next turn, he could Execute. Then if Chakki doesn't have the swipe, he could get a pretty good Battle Rage turn. But Chakki definitely just has to make the 2/5s this turn.
Is Ravaging Ghoul one of the best cards in the new set? I gotta believe it is. I mean, this card has just been impressing me every single time I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I think that's something that people realize that everybody thought Warrior's dead. They don't have Despite. But then they started playing this card, and it's a 3/3 body with the Whirlwind attached, and it's just real good.
Yeah, I mean, the stats are fine on it, right? It's a 3/3 for 3 mana. But when you start coupling it with cards like you see the Battle Rage in his hand now, you see the Execute in his hand now, it's good of Blood of Brave, you know, it's good of Frothing Berserker. I mean, the uses of it are exponential. I mean, this card just seems really good, and it's like an auto-include. And I mean, I've even been seeing it in Control Warrior lists and stuff too. Like, this card just seems great.
Yeah, people are just realizing that this should probably just go in every Warrior deck that isn't looking to hit the face like Zalay is.
I mean, yeah, like, let's say LBYS got to play against Brian the Rat Corte in this matchup, and he got to play this Ghoul in the Paladin matchup that kills, like, almost every minion in his deck, like,
that
without any help.
Game on turn 3. Just play the Ghoul out.
And so Chakki with a couple options here. You know, you could play a Violet Teacher, but he's kind of just offering it up as a sacrifice to a minion in the Fiery War Axe. Like you said, the card is so good in this matchup early, so how's he going to develop his board here? He could go for another 2/5 Druid of the Flame, but that seems kind of weak as well. I guess you could start with Raven Idol.
I think he might
What do
do
you,
that. He might
yeah,
go
what are
for
you
the
looking
spell
for?
here, looking
Yeah,
for even just something as dumb as like Starfire would actually. I mean, Starfall would be good here, like an
yeah.
AoE to clean up that board. But he decides that he's just gonna go with the Violet Teacher, which isn't that great because we see it's just gonna get cleaned up pretty cleanly here by the Rat, and he's gonna get a real good Battle Rage turn.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really like starting off with Ghoul Battle Rage here and then assess with your extra cards. I don't think if he picks up an Execute, he's gonna use it here, but this does just give you all the information first. So I like that play from the Rat in the sequencing. It doesn't matter what you run into here. You can actually protect his life total a little bit here and not use his Fiery War Axe. How do you feel about that?
I think the Rat's realizing that he doesn't have another weapon until the turn 7, so he's going to want to develop those creatures next turn. So if he has the Fire War Axe, he gets to play those minions and then use the Fire War Axe to deal with whatever Chakki's playing, and he's just going to continue to be ahead.
Yeah, and you know what? He has a couple good options next turn. He can play two different 3-drops. He's got Frothing Berserker plus Ghoul. He's got Acolyte of Pain plus Ghoul. I assume the Ghoul's going to happen in some way depending on what Chakki plays here. And there's a couple ways Chakki could possibly get blown out here, but he's going to have to play around a Whirlwind effect, I think, just a bit. It seems...
Back mechanics, you could get a spell off Raven Idol to maybe try and come back in the game, but it's really tough once you fall behind.
Yeah, get grinded all the way down and get Tree of Life off of Raven Idol. Had that happen a few times.
Ahead and close out the game. And once you fall behind with this deck, there's not really good any comeback mechanics. You could get a spell off Raven Idol to maybe try and come back in the game, but it's really tough once you fall behind.
Yeah, get grinded all the way down and get Tree of Life off of Raven Idol. Had that happen a few times. Make the game go super long, but you know what? We might be seeing what you were talking about, and you and him had a discussion about. He's going to live and die by this deck in this matchup, and that might be what's coming. Like what's going to happen here if this deck just lets him down.
I think he's going to have to realize this turn that he's going to have to start trying to burn him out. I don't think that's going to be really possible, but it's going to be what he has to try and do. He's probably going to Raven Idol, look for a spell, something like Swipe, or just anything that's going to throw damage at its opponent's face.
Moves so much power off the board.
Yeah, I think he would end up hitting the Acolyte first and then
it.
swiping.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, I think you pick up Swipe here for sure.
Bite.
Well, he got a 4-mana spell, but it's not the one he wanted.
He does have a clean board here if he wants it. He could use that boost to clear up that 3-1. And I think he will do it.
Yeah, I was say, I think I would. So yeah,
that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, I think you pick up Swipe here for sure.
Bite.
Well, he got a 4-mana spell, but it's not the one he wanted.
He does have a clean board here if he wants it. He could use that boost to clear up that 3-1. And I think he will do it.
Yeah, I was say, I think I would be in for this. There's a chance that your opponent might just have like the really heavy hand, or all of his support creatures left, and you see a heavy hand here from Brian the Rat Cortade, but it's got some good ones in it going into the next 2 turns. I'll say, is this just a Malkorok turn, or are you just worried about taking too much damage next turn? Do you have to get the Ghoul into play?
I think that's exactly what he's thinking about, and he's just realizing that if he doesn't take the damage, it's going to be hard for him to lose, because he has a lot of good tools to fight for board here, so just preserve the face damage, draws you a card, finds that Execute, deal with the big minion.
That's something Chakki would have been a little more better intervening out on turn 1, I think, possibly this game. Could have had some sick draws with turn 1 Feral, but it's a little late now. I'm trying to think, what can he do to win from here? He could charge Druid of the Claw. Doesn't get he gets in 4, puts Brian the Rat Cortade in a rough spot, but I don't know if he has enough output to finish this game off.
I'm curious what he's going to think that he has to do from here to try and win, because there's obviously outs that you can play to. He has another Raven Idol left, I believe, which could always pull a crazy minion or something. So I think he's just trying to consider like all those 1% possibilities of, is there any crazy win I could come back in this game?
Yeah, because like there's definitely 2 trains of thought here. There's like, I can play to not die, or I can play to win. And I know Chakki is the kind of guy that's going to play to win. This is what I would be doing in this spot, is charging and doing as much damage as possible, just hoping it gets there somehow, because playing not to win is delaying the inevitable. So I really like this play from Chakki.
So the Rat has to choose whether he's going to try and put on pressure here, or whether he's just going to try and armor up and just get out of range. Because you have to always do a mix of both. Like, you don't want to give the other opponent too much time to draw those cards. But you also don't want to leave them an opportunity to burn you out of the game.
Does he have Armorsmith in his deck? I think if he were to draw Armorsmith and be able to play Armorsmith into Frothing Berserker this turn, which he ends up doing, this is a really good clean turn. You trade in both your minions, you get an extra card, you get some extra armor for your troubles. Yeah, I really like this line from Brian the Rat Cortade.
And I think this is where Chakki realizes that, this game might not be in it for him.
Yeah, even gets the Blood to Ichor for an extra card and some extra damage here, because that's another thing is to actually find a way to kill Chakki as quickly as possible. And we see that not dying is number one for him because he has all the options in his hand. He has, Ragnaros, Malkarok, and Grom, and an Activator, so he can get this game over with pretty quick, maybe even as soon as next turn with Grom Whirlwind.
Yeah, Chakki realized that.
Yeah, he doesn't even have to wait. He's like, you got a handful of cards, a bunch of power in play, and an Armorsmith going. I can't win from here. Brian the Rat Cortade out to a quick 1-0 lead. And do you think, since you see the Temple Warrior deck, the one that we kind of thought it would be from him, do you really think we're going to see Reno Warlock from him, or do you think it's just going to stick with the old favorite in Zoo?